here, and can I just tell you how excited I am that the sun is out and shining? The birds are chirping. It just feels like a beautiful spring day. We've been having a lot of rainy days here in Dallas, and that plus being quarantined at home has made for some very dreary days. So I am so thankful that the sun is out, and in honor of that, I thought we should do art outside. So we're going to be doing 3 different art activities, and I'm breaking it down into part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 is going to be geared for my kinder and first grade students. Part 2 is going to be geared for my second and third grade students, and part 3 is going to be geared for my fourth and fifth grade students. But feel free, any grade level, to try any of them. The kinder and first grade activity, I had a lot of fun doing it, so I know that my older students would have fun doing it too. Make sure before you go outside that you get your parent or guardian's permission, and grab your supplies and get ready for a fun activity outside. For part 1 of our art activity, it is going to be nature texture rubbings. So for this activity, you're going to need some drawing paper. If you don't have regular white paper, notebook paper is just fine. Use whatever paper you have. Even if you just had newspaper, that would actually create a pretty cool texture rubbing project. An envelope, any paper that you have laying around at home will work just fine for this project. You're also going to need crayons in different colors that have the paper off of them. So it's important that the paper is off because we're going to be using these to press down on our paper with our texture to create our rubbing. And other than that, we're going to need some nature objects, but we're going to collect those on a little scavenger hunt. So grab your paper, your crayons, and venture outside, and let's get started. All right, boys and girls, so for our first project, like I said, it's going to be a nature texture rubbing. So first thing you're going to need to do is go outside with the permission of a parent or guardian, and then go on a little scavenger hunt around your yard for different things that have a good texture. Remember, texture is the way that something feels. So if I feel my sweatshirt, it feels soft. This table feels kind of rough because it's got a grid-like texture to it. So I'm going to show you the things that I collected. I collected a couple leaves, different ones that have different textures on them. I also collected some rocks. And these rocks are pretty small, which will work well for our texture rubbing. You don't want to get anything that's too big or pointy, because if it's pointy, it's going to rip your paper. I also found a ton of this like moss stuff. I think it's been falling off of our trees, but I think that would make for good texture rubbing. Some other different smaller leaves. And I also found this flower that I thought would maybe give some good texture when we rub it with our crayon. So take some time, walk around your yard and see what cool things you can find, and then meet me back here and we'll get started. All right, boys and girls, now that we've collected our nature objects that we found on our scavenger hunt, I want us to think of this as a little science experiment. So we're going to create a hypothesis, which is our guess of which of these textures are going to turn out the best. So I've collected leaves, I've collected small little rocks, a flower, this like mossy stuff. I'm also going to try out doing it on this table because this has a great texture. So I'm going to decide which ones I think are going to turn out the best and which ones won't turn out the best. So I want you to make your guesses right now. I'm going to say that the leaf, the flower, the rocks, and the table are going to turn out the best. I'm a little unsure about this moss, but I still want to test it out just to see. All right, now that we've got our hypothesis of what we think is going to work best, now it's time for us to experiment. So when we're doing our texture rubbings, you're going to take your object, you're going to put it under your paper, And you're going to make sure your crayon has the paper off of it, and you're going to put it on its side, and you're going to rub back and forth, and you want to go all different kinds of directions. And the goal is that you will start to see an imprint of the object. See, this one's looking pretty cool. And like I said, you want to go back and forth all different directions. This leaf is pretty cool. I'm going to show you. So that gave us a pretty good rubbing of this leaf. We got to see all the different lines and veins that it had in the leaf. So from here, did the leaf, I'm going to go through and I'm going to finish doing my rubbings for all my other objects, and I want you to do the same, and we'll come back here together and talk about which ones were our favorites and go from there. Boys and girls, so this was my test rubbing page, and this leaf was the one we did together. I thought that one turned out great. This other smaller leaf turned out really good too. I love the table texture right here. That gave a great imprint. Some of the ones that did not turn out so good, this was the rocks, and I think because the rocks were lots of different sizes, it didn't get a very good rubbing. Another thing that was surprising to me, I guessed that the flower would give me a good texture rubbing, and that was the flower one, and that did not turn out well at all. When I was pushing down on it, it just squished the flower, and I didn't get a good imprint of the flower. The other one that didn't work out, that I actually hypothesized would not work out, was the moss. Now, it did give me this like fuzzy kind of texture, so that might be good to add in small areas on our artwork. Okay, so now we've got our test page. Now I want you to get another piece of paper for another test. So for this test, I'm going to have you walk around your yard and look for other textures that are non-nature objects. So for example, I'm sitting right by my wooden fence, and I'm seeing lots of different lines that I think would give a great texture rubbing. I'm also looking at the side of our house. I'm looking at some chairs that we have back here, the brick that's on the ground. So I'm going to take time now. I'm going to take my test paper, one color crayon, and I'm going to walk around my yard, and I'm going to get some different texture rubbings. And then I'm going to come back here, and then we'll look at our favorites to create our artwork together. All right, boys and girls, so now that you've walked around your yard and kind of scoped out some of the textures and done a test, I want to show you mine. Now, I found some really cool ones. This one right here was from my wood fence. The one that is below it with all of these different lines, that is a mesh chair that I have in our backyard, and so that was from the fabric. This right here is from some sheet metal that's actually on some stairs that are in our backyard. This right here is from our gutter that goes down the side of the house and it drains water. This right here is from the siding that's on the side of our house. It's a wood siding, so that gave some really cool looking texture. This one right here is from a storm drain grate that's on the ground. It's the top part that covers where storm water goes so that it doesn't flood our house. It goes underground. So that gave me some really cool textures. So in combination with the ones that we found from nature, I want us to combine them, and instead of using one color, we're going to use a different color for each texture. And if we overlap them, that's going to be even better. It's going to create some interest, and it's going to make our artwork look even better. So from here, I want you to get a new piece of paper, pick a color for each of the textures that you want to use, and let's get started on creating our masterpiece, and we'll come back together to share them. All right, boys and girls, I want to show you my completed texture rubbing artwork right here. And I want you to note how I used overlapping, that I didn't just create a texture side by side, I would overlap them. So when you see two colors that are on top of each other, that's when I did a texture rubbing and then I did another one on top of it. And I think that adds a lot of variety and interest to your artwork. So I hope you had fun with this activity. I cannot wait to see what you created. Also, feel free to keep doing it with different combination of colors. So maybe you do a cool color texture rubbing, which is using your greens, blues, and purples. And then you did another one with your warm colors, which is red, orange, yellow. Keep going and create lots of these. And I'll be back on here to talk about our next outdoor art activity.